Everyone always asks, Mason, what's with the blanket? What's with the Aztec vest? What's with the Portuguese vest? I've had numerous comments around, the vests and the jackets, and there's a level of gratitude and humility that I want to ensure that I always carry forward in my life as a husband, and as a father, and as a friend. And so I believe some of that comes from never forgetting where you started and how your journey began. And so there was a gentleman in Tucson, Arizona, by the name of Bob Coate. And Mr. Coate owned a ranch outside of Tucson on the east side of town called Tanque Verde Guest Ranch. Mr. Coate used to buy a lot of unique items from Country Emporium, from our family's antique shop. He'd buy, wagon wheels, he'd buy spurs and branding irons. And I always respected and appreciated that even though we were delivering merchandise to his ranch, he treated my dad and treated me like we were family, not somebody that was a customer or a client or a delivery man. And it meant a lot to me, it really did. And I felt that from an early age with him. And I remember I was probably around 11 or 12 years old, and we're leaving Tanque Verde Guest Ranch, and I asked my dad, I said, Dad, what is the story with Mr. Coate's vests? And he says, well, what do you mean? And I said, the colors and like the designs and everything, they just look so cool. And he says, well, Mason, Mr. Coate's vests are Pendleton vests. And he goes, when you're a cowboy with a little jingle in your pocket, you too can afford a Pendleton. In the meantime, you get your vest from the feed store and they're one color and they're wool. I remember on that ride home that night thinking to myself that someday I'm gonna work hard enough where I too can afford a little jingle in my pocket. And when I make it, I wanna get one of those vests like Mr. Coate had. Each of us have these defining moments and certain memories that stay with us. Mr. Coate stayed with me both as his love and friendship and respect that he showed to my dad and I. I was very inspired by his level of commitment to the community of Tucson and Tanque Verde Guest Ranch and ensuring the lore of the American West was able to live on. And so that coat symbolized all of that for me. Those vests symbolized all of that for me. And I didn't necessarily realize it completely at that time at 11 or 12 years of age, but it never was something that left me. It always stayed with me. Fast forward, I'd left Tucson and I went to the Pacific Northwest and pursued an undergrad degree up there and started a business, and that business became incredibly successful in healthcare. And I'll never forget getting this phone call from my pops, and essentially he was sick, and he asked me if I'd come back to Tucson and help him with some doctor's appointments. And we knew that he only had a little bit of time with us. And you had that conversation around what are some things that still matter to you? What are some things that if we could go out and do that you would love to ensure that you were able to write this next chapter of lore before your time comes? And we talked, and one of those things was he really wanted to go to the national parks, and we'd never done that. Another element was I could tell he wanted to swing by or go to the Pendleton store in Pendleton, Oregon. Dad and I took a road trip, and we left Tucson, and we started this adventure up into the Pacific Northwest, and we stopped into the Pendleton store in Pendleton, Oregon, where the Pendleton Mills originally began. And we went in there, and Dad and I kind of roamed around the store, and we selected his first Pendleton vest for him. And so that vest to me meant something to my dad, it meant something to me as his son, and it also meant something to me in the journey that I had forgotten that I had started, which life to me is about community, it's about friendship, and that Pendleton vest that Mr. Coate wore inspired me in a way that he may never have known or realized, but I was able to share in that moment with my dad in 2017. And so that vest represents many chapters for me in my journey, both personally and professionally. But I absolutely wear it as a tribute to my father and in his memory, to where I never forget the incredible man that he was and the friendship that he provided me. And I look forward to taking him along the ride and along the trail with me as we blaze some new adventures with bourbon lore.